Alright guys, we are back to do some more work on the Dakota. For this video we're going to be fabricating basically custom mounts to put the Grand Am radiator and the eBay intercooler in front of the radiator in the front of the truck. My plan is to take that angle iron and make a lower mount that'll run from right here. I'm just going to weld it on to right here. That is what the lower part of the intercooler is going to bolt to, and it's just going to rest right there. Up top, I'm going to probably box this in right here and use little pieces of the angle iron and then drill holes in it and use that to bolt this square tube right here and up to it and run that across. I'm going to use that to mount the top of the intercooler too, so that the top of the intercooler is completely sturdy. Once the intercooler is mounted, because it's kind of the most important thing, is to get that mounted and have it as far forward as possible while still having clearance for the grill to fit. I'll go and start getting the radiator brackets mounted. And these lower ones, I'm going to probably have to just weld somewhere down here. That is the plan basically, and of course after everything's done I'm going to have to spray it all down with some paint so none of it rusts, because this truck loves doing that. Let's see down here, there's the rust. Alright, I got the angle iron piece cut, and this is basically just going to sit right there. I'll go ahead and do some more measuring of the intercooler to get the holes drilled into this to bolt the intercooler to, and that'll bolt the intercooler on, and then we'll start doing the upper core support, I guess you could call it. And then we'll start working on the radiator. So I'm going to get you guys set up. We're going to do some welding, some painting and everything. Try to get the intercooler in here, make sure everything fits. Alright, I got the bar welded in. Went in with the grinder and cleaned everything back up. Holes drilled for the intercooler, bolting it on, putting the grill on, checking clearance and stuff. And then we'll start working on the upper core support or upper mount, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll start working on the radiator after that. Well, I think that looks pretty good. It sits far enough back from the grill to not really be a pain. But it sits close enough that there's plenty of room for, you know, the radiator and stuff to fit. I'm not wasting space. I like that. That looks really good to me. So now the next thing to do is to make an upper mount, which I almost cut myself down there. That was really stupid. To make an upper mount to bolt the intercooler to this to secure everything, tie everything together. I'm going to go ahead and pull the intercooler back off and get the grill back off. And then I'll start working on an upper core support deal. And I'll show you guys what that looks like when I'm done. I just went and cut up two of these pieces here. There's another one sitting down on the floor right there. And I'm basically going to sit this right here about like that and just weld it on this side, and that will box this in. So it's going to be this and then a small section of angle iron about that long welded to this other side of this, sticking out, and then the square tube will be bolted to the angle iron that's welded to this. I cleaned up the metal already, so I'm going to go ahead and start welding these on. Yeah, I got these done, so I'm going to go ahead and weld them, and then we will just continue from there. Alright, things are going well. I got both plates welded on, and I just got this bar cut and just resting in here, and it's pretty much the perfect size to just slide right into place. So I'm going to drill the holes for the intercooler to bolt to it. From there, I'll figure out where I need to mount the angle iron pieces, which I have sitting down there, up to this, and then I'll just drill holes straight through it and run a bolt through them, and then the intercooler will be bolted to this, and then it'll be bolted to the upper, what's left of the upper core support, and then that will pretty much tie everything together in this region, and then we'll finally be able to start putting the radiator into place. I got the upper core support brackets and everything welded up and holes drilled and everything, so here's what it looks like. I got the bolt running through the front instead of the top, and I think this looks a lot better. It almost looks like it was meant to be there, which I'm pretty happy with. So the next thing to do is to get the radiator pulled out and to go ahead and start sitting it back here and welding stuff up. So my plan, I think at least, is going to be to take this piece here and this piece here and try to bend them back straight, and then weld those pieces to the side here, and then the rest of it over to here, and use that to kind of weld the thing into place. And then the top, I'm not really sure, depending on the height. I'm going to either use the bolts up front for the AC bracket to hold it still, or I'm going to use the factory brackets and like cut them somewhere down here and just use the top of this. I'm going to start working on the lower bracket situation, and then we'll start welding stuff, and we'll have the radiator conversion pretty much done, and have an intercooler mounted in front of the radiator instead of behind it. Alright, I got one of the radiator mounts in place, just chilling right there. So what I ended up doing was cutting the first circle off of it completely and kind of shaving it down, and then bending this ear out straight. And I welded all the way around here on this top side, and then I welded that ear into place as well, so it's real nice and sturdy. And I'm waiting for that to cool off so I can put the bushing into it and drop the radiator on. I'm going to take the other mount after I cut it and shave it and everything, and then just pop it into the radiator because it sits tight enough, and figure out where that one needs to be just from that. And then after that, I'll just have to clean stuff up real good, spray some paint on it all so it doesn't rust. Radiator conversion will be done, and tomorrow night we'll be able to put the engine and transmission in and pretty much dial in the 5-speed swap and finally have everything for the most part assembled and almost ready to run again. Well guys, I'm excited to show you what the finished product basically looks like. There's no paint on anything, but everything is welded, bolted together, and sitting really, really good. I don't think I could have been any happier with the outcome of this. So, here it is. Got, of course, you guys have already seen the intercooler mounting setup, so this giant upper core support bar here, and then the angle iron are welded to the bottom, and the intercooler is sandwiched right in between it. And then down here, got the 2 radiator brackets welded into place. You can kind of see. These are the brackets, the actual Grand Am brackets. I cut the angled part off, drilled holes in them. And one of them, this one is a little bit longer originally than this one, which is why the shape is a little bit different. But this one I had to shave down more too to make it clear, this angle iron. Height of the radiator is pretty much perfect. It's tucked up behind the intercooler really well. There is a decent gap between the two, so there's not going to be a bunch of like residual heat soaking onto the intercooler, which is good because of course that was one issue I was definitely having before. Originally I wanted to mount the radiator really low. That was my original kind of design, I guess, even though I never really drew anything out. But my original plan was to have it mounted way lower than this, but I think this will work better because the hoses will be a little bit closer to where they need to meet the radiator and the engine, almost where the factory ones were, at least for the lower one. Being a little bit higher, it'll get way more airflow coming through the front grille, because with this air dam thing that I made, there wouldn't be much airflow getting to it with it being right there. When I go to put the engine back in, it'll be really easy to just unbolt all of this stuff, take it out, and then the engine will just slip right in here because I don't have anything up here in the way, which was part of the reason I decided to do the radiator conversion right now, was because I ended up just cutting the upper core support out of it when we were pulling the engine because it was in the way. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Maybe this has inspired a few of you to go ahead and do the same thing to your Dakotas. This hopefully will cool fine. I mean, this radiator was on an engine like this, and I think this is a 3.4 liter, 3.9 liter. It should be fine. This thing had some stupid copper core old school junk on it. Actually, it's right here. Had this thing, which I think surface dimension wise is about the same. That radiator over there is a lot thinner than this one is. This one's probably an inch thick, and that one, I don't know, is probably half of an inch thick. But I also have less load being put on the cooling system because I don't have power steering running through it, so there's a little bit less load being put on the coolant system. All it is doing is cooling the engine. It's not cooling anything else whatsoever. This engine doesn't have an oil cooler or anything soaking any heat into the coolant at all. It's just the engine cooling itself. I hope you guys have enjoyed. This was really fun to do. Honestly, I kind of hate using the angle grinder just because it makes a mess everywhere and it sprays me in the face and stuff because I don't have the guard for it anymore. But the Harbor Freight welder cooperated pretty well with it on the maximum setting. This thing is still going after, what, like 2 years still? This is the older version too. The new one makes like 125 amps. This is the 90 amp one. It works good, and it does pretty good welds. It likes to burn through really thin metal, which is an issue, and you can turn it down to the lowest setting and it won't get as hot, but then it, like, the trigger bounces and it just doesn't penetrate very well, so you just have to fight with it on real thin metal. I had that issue down on the lower core support here when I was welding the radiator brackets up. It worked pretty well. Of course, you know, I had enough cutting wheels and flap discs and stuff just laying around to get everything cut. Everything went together exactly how I did, and most of the stuff was just eyeballed. Everything except for cutting the angle iron piece and the square tube was all eyeballed stuff. So if you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and come back for the next video when the engine gets mated up to the NV3500 and ends up in the truck. I'll be cutting a hole in the floor. We'll be getting the 5-speed swap basically done, and then after that it'll just be down to putting everything back together, finishing the wiring harness up, and there's going to be a whole lot of other nitpicky things that need done. But once the engine is and transmission is in there and bolted up and like rock solid, that's when things are going to start getting really exciting. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you all later.